What is going, guys? My name is Cece, and welcome back to Feeds Mindset, episode number 33 with the man Brinx. Brinx, welcome in, man. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited too, man. I definitely appreciate your time being on. It means a lot for you to be on here, so thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to talk to you because I've seen a lot of your grind so far, and it's my first time getting to talk to you, like actually in person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's definitely when we was talking off camera. You know, that's something that I always kind of mention too. Is it's a unique factor for me, of course, because it allows me to kind of connect with people in a very unique way. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there that can say that the first time they really met somebody was just a Discord video call. You know, that don't happen at all. So it's kind of unique. It's kind of cool, and for the podcast too. Something I always bring up on every single podcast, I always like to talk about our friendship. So me and you don't really know each other. As you did mention, there is a grind going on for NorCal that I am currently going for. That's not what this podcast is about, but that's how we connected and how I ended up finding this beautiful man, Brinx. But yeah, I definitely do appreciate, all the love and everything you've shown me and stuff. And I'm definitely excited to dive into it. Mm-hmm. So the way to start this off, so just kind of for anybody listening, whether they're your community, my community, or just random people popping in, kind of just explain who is Brinx as of the current day. What do you do? Where do you stream? And what do you create?
Okay, well, right now I would say I'm a Valorant YouTuber. I do stream occasionally here and there. I used to stream every week. Mm-hmm. But I've dialed it back to really put a focus on content because I've been doing it for so long and I really want to take it to the next level. So I've tried to go all in on that recently and it's going pretty well. Really put more focus on shorts recently. So those are kind of my two things, YouTube videos and YouTube shorts, Valorant content. That's me.
Do you have like an upload schedule or anything that you do for your shorts and stuff?
Yes, for the shorts, I do one on Friday and one on Monday. And one on Friday, one on Monday. That's a new thing, so that's why I can remember it. But for the videos, I think my New Year's resolution is to do one every month, at least.
One every month? Yeah, I got you. Well, that's cool. That's nice. Yeah, and I mean, Valorant, and I've said this on a couple other podcasts. You may have heard it because you was telling me you was watching Flamies a little bit, probably not a whole lot. But that was something me and him was just talking about because he's played a little bit of Valorant. He's mainly Fortnite, but that's something I was telling him is, obviously everybody knows me as Feeds and the sniper and stuff. And I was sniping clearly before Valorant, but when COVID had hit, that was when I was able to get my first ever PC, and Valorant was my first ever PC game. And I say this all the time, but when Cold War and Shitguard came out, I hated both of those Call of Duties. And so to alleviate not being COD like I usually was every single day I'd come home from work, I decided to pick up Valorant, and I played that for probably about a year and a half. I only got to like Plat 3, which isn't super high, but I didn't really play competitive a lot. I absolutely loved the sniping in it. I mean, clearly I'm a freaking sniper guru. Anything that has a sniper, I'm going to pick it up, But I fell in love with Valorant. I was a Sova main. I was a Jet main to start out, but when they added the nerf to double click her dash, that's when I decided to go to Sova, and I learned the lineups and the double darts and stuff, and it was just a unique time. So how did you get into Valorant? How was Valorant the game that you've kind of always done content on? Did you do something before that?
Well, I actually started my YouTube channel on Call of Duty, believe it or not, and I kind of got into it because of the New York Phase House. That's the thing that really ignited the spark. I'd been watching YouTubers and Call of Duty YouTubers before then, but that's what kind of got me to asking for what's it called, an Elgato capture card for Christmas, and started making content. So started on Call of Duty, then I think I did Fortnite soon after that. Once that started to pick up, I started in like Chapter 1, Season 2 of Fortnite, and played that until Apex Legends came out. And I kind of just jumped on the new game whenever it came out. Because as soon as that came out, started streaming that instead. And this is back when I streamed on YouTube. And then Valorant came out. And I don't know why I started playing it, because I had never played CSGO at all. Never even touched it or downloaded. And I just hopped on Valorant and kind of, I guess, just fell in love with it. And since the Valorant beta, I've been playing Valorant.
Wow.
That's my main game.
That's crazy. Who's your main character on there?
It's Omen and Phoenix. Those are my two mains.
Phoenix, that's kind of different. I don't really see any Phoenix mains really ever. Omen's a little bit typical. Yeah, I've not seen like hardly any Phoenix mains. And I think especially like in the what is it called, like the VCT champs or something, like the Valorant championship. Yeah. There's like nobody that plays Phoenix in there.
Yeah, I don't know. They always pick
makes
Jet,
you mad. That's funny.
Kind of feel bad for my boy Phoenix, but I'll play him.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Yeah, and that was the same thing. Like when I was playing Valorant, got a hair on my freaking thing. But when I was getting into Valorant, I didn't really like CS:GO either. Like I don't really know what it was. I honestly, when I was playing Valorant, it was my first PC game, so I didn't really know anything about the PC genre. But I didn't really know anything about CS:GO before that. And then when I would play it for a little bit, my buddy's like, hey, like we're hopping on CSGO. Do you want to come play? And I was like, what's that? And I started looking up like YouTube, like trailers and stuff about it. I was like, that looks dumb. And he was like, how dare you? And I was like, oh, he's dumb. I was like, it's boring. It's not colorful. It's boring. I look like I'm playing World War II. Like, I don't like it. Yeah. And I've played a little bit of CSGO since then. I've got a couple clips on it, not a whole lot. But I don't know. I couldn't get into CSGO. I really loved Valorant, but just seeing how non-vibrant CSGO was, I just felt like I was just going to be depressed when I played that game.
Have you played CS2 at all?
I played it a little bit. I didn't like it too much. I did like the fact that I can actually hear when I get a kill. That was something that I was really annoyed off of CS1, technically.
Yeah, me too. That always threw me off.
Yeah, which like something that helps me. I mean, obviously my name is feeds. I'm looking at the feed all the time. Like if I know I got like 5 to 10 seconds to run before like my next gunfight, my eyes are like in that corner. I'm always looking either at the map or the kill feed. And so it wasn't too hard playing CSGO because I'm used to looking at that anyways, but I don't know. It's just a little annoying not having that satisfying little click when you'd kill somebody, and you always have to look at the feed, like, oh, did I get him? Did I hit marker? And that was kind of annoying. But yeah, so obviously we did just talk a little bit about your gaming and stuff, and you don't have to re-go through everything you just said, but that's the first question I usually always ask is kind of get into your gaming background, especially from your childhood per se to get into gaming. How did you start getting into gaming? When did gaming come into your life and something that you now make content on?
Well, like the beginning of my gaming journey. Okay, well, I started on Crash Bandicoot 2. And Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Really?
On the Sega Genesis. So
wow.
That's what I started with. And I play a little bit of Toe Jam and Earl, if you know what that is.
I can't say I do.
Yeah, it's an old
I'm not going to be fake. I don't know what that is.
No, that's all good. I don't expect you to know it. Yeah. But those are the kind of the games that I started with. And I just played those small, really old games for a while until... I think it was for my 8th grade graduation, I got an Xbox 360, and then it just kind of went up from there to Call of Duty and then everything else.
Yeah. So before you got into Call of Duty, which I mean Call of Duty could have been the game, is there like a game from your childhood that kind of highlighted it for you? Like was there like a main game that really kind of, you would say, kind of developed you and kind of something you're just grateful for playing?
Well, there's this one game which some people laugh at hearing it, but have you ever heard of Wizard 101?
Yeah.
I love that game.
Really?
With my whole soul. That I could play that game all day, every day. But I actually had to uninstall it because I was playing it so much. But yeah, that game has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, well, that's cool. How did you get into Wizard 101? Did you just stumble upon it one day?
I think it was just the commercials that were on TV. It just drew me in.
You're the guy that watches commercials like, you know what? That's actually pretty good.
I mean, it brought me in, and then my sister played it, and my brother played it, and we also got one of my friends to start playing it, so we just had our core little 4-person group that we played.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely a unique game, I would say. I'll give you that much. It's definitely a unique game. But, I think that And you don't have to have one. I've had some conversation with creators where they're like, oh, there's not one. And it's like, it's not a big deal, but like there is some people out there that like a certain game develops who you are, and because you become grateful for that. So like mine, because I know you've kind of recently tapped into my podcast, which is fine, no big deal. So for me, my favorite game of all time was Final Fantasy 12. When I was 10 years old, I've said the story a couple times, but I'll say it again. When I was 10 years old, my family, our electric was turned off for about 2 or 3 days, and they couldn't afford to pay it. And so my dad had a generator that he would run off that we would use so that way we could play our games and watch TV and stuff. And it was a little bit later in the day, I think like 5 or 6 o'clock. They always shut it off every couple hours so that way it don't get too hot or something. And so we shut it off, and me and my brother, when it would rain, we would love going out on the trampoline to jump and get the wet trampoline. It was just something that was really fun to do. And so it was a little bit raining, and we was just jumping on the trampoline or whatever. And when my dad went to the garage to turn the generator off, he had this little blanket that he throws on it when it's all cool, and he threw it on there when it was hot. And when he shut the door behind him, it caused a chemical reaction, and it exploded in our garage. And our house had caught on fire. It only really affected the garage. Everything else was just like smoked up, and the house was unlivable. I didn't really have hardly anything left. It was just tons of smoke damage. But our house had caught fire, and luckily on the same plot of land, we had this old beat-down trailer that was on that we moved into and had to clean up and stuff. But one of the only things that survived was my PlayStation 2. And it was a white one, and it literally, I wish I could find a picture of it, but it literally had like smoke marks like halfway up it and stuff, and it was like all messed up, and some of the wires were a bit like, looked like they was falling off and stuff, but it still worked somehow. And obviously all my games were fine because they was in a case. It was just like, the case was literally like pure black, and you would just open it up and everything else would be fine. And I only had a couple games at that time. I had my cousin, his name is Zach, and me and him would always trade games. We would never really go to GameStop and spend tons of money on games, and plus my family couldn't afford it anyways, and so we would always swap out some games and stuff. And he had, I don't know how, he just had tons of games, and we would just swap with each other. And that was just a random one that I'd grabbed, and that was one of the few games that I had in my collection that had survived. And so in our little rinky-dink trailer, that is the game that I had to play, and it got me through. So I was 10 years old, so I think that was my 6th grade year. I think it was summertime, so I wasn't in school. But I couldn't do nothing. I didn't have my bikes, I didn't have my golf clubs, I had nothing. I didn't have no football or nothing. Everything was ruined. And on top of that, my family, still didn't have a lot of money and stuff. And so all I had to play was the PS2. We had a little box screen TV that was in that trailer, and then my PS2 in the game. And I played for that whole summer. I played like 2.5 months on that game, probably put well over 1,000 hours on it. And Final Fantasy 12, if you ever know the Final Fantasy series, it has on most of the games. Some of the games are just kind of cut and dry, but on that one specifically, it has tons of different story endings, hunts that you can do, characters, you can put them on different traits and different combat boards and stuff, and just kind of trick them out differently, because only certain characters could do certain things, kind of just like Valorant. Certain characters can do certain things, but the difference obviously is you can choose what they do rather than just being equipped with what they have. And I just had a blast, and I was lost. I forgot about hanging out with my friends. I forgot about all the people making fun of me because I couldn't go bike riding or playing baseball or nothing, and that's all I had. I couldn't go do nothing. Mom and Dad couldn't drive me anywheres because the Suburban that we had a Suburban, and then my dad's truck, and the back of the Suburban was like completely melted off on the back end of it, and my dad's truck was fine. And so we couldn't really go out and do things. And so just that whole summer, that's all I had was my PlayStation and that game. And that game had got me through that whole summer. And I had barely thought anything of our situation, of mom and dad arguing, and everything that came with that negative downfall. And, it was obviously a couple of years after, I still, obviously, as of today, I still think back on that story. But something that's really important, after 3 or 4 years when I really got into gaming, I started thinking back on that time when I was a kid and all that stuff. And I was thinking, that game had really got me through, especially as a child, one of my toughest times I've ever had. And especially on top of not having nothing, and you're watching your family argue about bills and financial stuff, it was just a rough time. And so being able to have that, it really made an impact on me and made me understand that gaming got me out of a hole that I didn't even know I was in. And so when I kind of got old enough to get into gaming and do content creation, that's something I kind of look back on, and I'm like, if a game could make me feel that way, how can I be passionate enough to make somebody else feel that way? And that's what kind of fueled my journey into content creation. I mean, hell, even to this podcast today, even us sitting here, is that's kind of a part of it, knowing that I can make a change and be a change. And, that's kind of why I always like to ask if there's a certain game that really gets you into things, because Final Fantasy 12, for me, really just definitely made me the creator who I am today.
Yeah. That's awesome. That the things video games can do, People say they make people violent, and then you hear something like that. But I need to look this up real quick. You reminded me, there was a Final Fantasy game that I also played when I was really young. I don't know if it was Final Fantasy 12. No, it was one of the ones where they looked like block characters. Like
Final Fantasy 7, maybe?
Maybe. Let me see.
7's probably the most popular one. They recently remade it not too long ago.
Yes. Yeah. That's the one I played.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 7's usually everybody's fan favorite. It's usually 7, 10, and then I think 12. I don't know, but yeah, Final Fantasy 7 was a great game too, and I definitely put that up there with some of my favorite games. But obviously, that game in specific just got me through a really difficult time. So that's why I always like to ask that, because it's important to have, because just like you said, everybody says, games are violent, games are threatening, games are pointless, go work some overtime, pick up a second job, blah, blah, blah. Everybody says this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, the most beautiful thing about gaming is it gives you these personality traits that you never had before. And there's honestly some traits that gaming gives you that you won't get in a normal everyday job, depending on your profession. If you're dealing with customer service all day long, you'll probably get it eventually. But gaming just adds a really unique way of having to be trained, per se, to learn certain things without somebody jamming down your throat that you need to get something done.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it like that. Because there's recently it's kind of like a guilty pleasure of mine, because I haven't played. Oh, do you hear my dogs just started barking? What was I saying? I haven't really played any single player story games in such a long time, because I've been trying to really focus and just do my content and focus on my content and focus on playing Valorant. But recently I started. Sorry if you can hear my dogs.
Good. You're fine.
I started playing God of War, the new one, and that's just been amazing. And like what you just said about like problem solving and learning how to figure things out on your own without somebody jamming it down your throat. Like, I don't know. I didn't even think about it like that. But
definitely. Have you considered doing like Let's Plays and stuff on that, like in your free time?
No, I don't know. I think I kind of just want to keep that as like a fun thing on the side,
No, I definitely understand. Yeah, I mean, everybody's different. That's fine. I was saying that out of experience, because for me, I had the Resident Evil series, 3, or not 3, what was it? I can't remember. It was like 6 and 7 or something like that. I don't know. They had remastered not too long ago, and I did Let's Plays on those. I think it was 3 and 4. I don't know. I'm going crazy. But I did Let's Plays on my YouTube channel for that, and it was a blast, because at that time, normal feeds, playing COD, sniping, hitting clips every day. Like eventually it gets boring, and you want to outsource things and stuff. And so I did that on my YouTube channel, quite a couple of months back. And that had kind of helped fill that spill. But either way, content or not, regardless, I do definitely think that it's important for people to diversify themselves into other stuff than just what's considered the meta. And because there's a lot of people, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later in this discussion. Something you wanted to bring up is a lot about content and different ways to kind of diversify yourself into it, and things that maybe you're doing wrong, but maybe you just don't understand that you're doing it wrong, and just kind of all that ties into burnouts and just losing your passion and stuff, and all that makes a big deal, because at the end of the day, gaming is the whole reason why we're making this stuff. So losing your passion for it is one thing, but finding a motivation to get it back is a completely different avenue.
Yeah. But yeah, about the content thing, you just said something and it sparked an idea, and then my dog barked, and
it's all right. We can touch back on it.
um, yeah, there's two people mainly that I help right now with their content, and it's not like I'm their YouTube consultant or anything, but NCR Junior, I help him a lot with his content. Like every time he does an edit, he'll send it to me, and he'll be like, "Any notes?" And every time he does a thumbnail, same thing. And then also NCR Voltage, he recently switched from Valorant content to League content, and I've been helping him with his thumbnails and his titles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's something I really enjoy to do. Like, honestly, if I could be a YouTube consultant full time, I think I'd be content. As much as I love making my own content, like I really like helping others figure out their stuff. Because like a lot of people, as you said, are kind of doing something that they don't necessarily know that they're doing something, not necessarily wrong, but just not the most efficient way. And if I can just send them one message, help them out a ton, and push them a lot farther ahead in their content journey, then that's something I just really enjoy doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, same thing, and like I said, we'll kind of touch back on this here in a couple of minutes, but it just all ties into networking and stuff. I mean, being able to have people to reach out to and just to get a small little opinion or advice. I mean, it could be two things. It could be just to make whatever your content doing more enjoyable, or just a simple, hey, fix this hashtag or fix the beginning of this, the 7-second start out, do this, or just anything simple. I mean, it could be life changing. I mean, that could be your next viral video. That could be the next video that appeals to your best friend that you don't even know is alive. You don't know, who it's going to tap into. So that is definitely important. Like I said, we'll touch back on that here in a little bit, but it definitely is important to be able to have somebody to kind of spit back and forth with. I think that's one of the more important things that nobody talks about in this environment.
Yeah.
So, but before we kind of tap into that, the second question, I know I kind of already did talk about gaming a little bit. I always do like to talk about the streaming side of things, which your background, just like you said, you're a little bit different because most of your stuff is content. But we know of Brinx right now of what you do, but take me through before you dealt with those battles and those, I don't want to, saying like mental health was an issue for you, but kind of going through that small little struggle of should I stop streaming? Should I create content or something? Before that happened, take me through how you got into streaming and how it was something that you started doing before the content and now.
Yeah. So my friend NorCal Martimer, I mentioned him earlier, I think. Him and I have been friends for like maybe 4-5 years at this point, before either of us were in NorCal. And he had been streaming, and we were both streaming on YouTube at the time, making Fortnite content, and the content was horrible, but we were doing it. And he had been streaming, and he kind of pushed me to also start streaming on YouTube. So I streamed on there for probably about a year, and throughout that time, so my very first stream was a Fortnite stream. And I did that for many, many months. And then Apex came out, and I kind of fell in love with it. My community didn't really fall in love with it, but they still watched me because they were my community. And every time they would come in the stream, the first thing they'd say is, "Ew, Apex." And then Valorant came out, and I started doing the Valorant streams on YouTube. And I think back then, for a really long time, I did Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week. I would do like about 2-hour stream, and then occasionally I'd do like maybe a 4-6 hour stream if I was feeling it on the weekends. But so I did a lot of streaming, and that really helped me build the community that I have now, because a lot of those people that I found back then are still with me. Even if they aren't the biggest fans of Valorant, like they still would watch all my content. So very grateful for that. But so then I had started grinding for NorCal, and there was back then, like, I mean, first of all, nowadays there's like the streamer wars where there's YouTube, there's all these other places that you can stream, Twitch, Kick. So back then it was really only just like, if you're not streaming on Twitch, what are you doing? So even though things were going well on YouTube, I decided to switch to Twitch, and all in all, it was a good decision because I didn't know as much about YouTube back then as I do now, but I was worried that my streams were hurting the performance of my videos. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another reason I switched to Twitch. But switched there, started building my community over there, and was able to connect with a lot more people over there. Because on YouTube there was really no features besides chatting and sub
Yeah.
emotes. Like that's basically all they had back then. So that kind of opened me up to a whole nother side of content creation and content creators, like people I could potentially collab with. Um, so I did that for a really long time. Still Monday, Wednesday, Friday streams. And I think eventually I kind of got to a point where sometimes, I mean, this happens to every streamer, even the ones that are full time now. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have that stream where you get 1 to 2 viewers and you stream for 3 hours, and it's obviously it's not for the money, but you maybe don't get any donations, not like a single bit, and nobody shows up. Everybody's gonna have those streams every once in a while, and I definitely had a few of those myself.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was something I could do that would be a better use of my time,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd still be able to connect with my audience through those other ways. So that's kind of what steered me away from streaming, but I didn't have like a hard cut of all of a sudden I told them I'm like not going to start or not going to stream anymore. I just it's kind of a gradual thing. And I did do, before then, I did do a bunch of things. Like I did a subathon. I did 2 subathons, and those went really well,
Mm-hmm.
and made a lot of fun memories on those. But I'd still love to do one of those one day because I haven't done one in a very long time. But anyways,
Yeah.
it was just kind of a gradual thing, and I decided to, instead of using those 6 to 8 to 10 hours a week streaming, I'd instead put those hours into editing and just making content, thinking of ideas. So that's kind of what I did, and that's kind of how I got to where I am now, where I don't really stream anymore, but occasionally I'm feeling it, I will.
Yeah. So you're pretty much kind of very backwards of what the normal is. You know, the normal is no TikToks, no YouTube Shorts, no Twitter posts, no YouTube posts. Just go stream and make sure it's at 7 o'clock in the morning because they know that that's when you're there. And the meta now is stream for 12 hours, tell them bye, and reassure them that you're going to be there the next day. And that's all they have. And so for you've not saying that was like what you did, but you had the mindset originally, just like everybody else does, like I want to stream, I want to get out there. And you start realizing this could be a career, but it can't be a career if all you're focused on is that one godly day where things go right for you. And so you had the switch up as many as many people do, as going into content. Now you just kind of stream every now and then, which is kind of a little bit more unique because that's obviously not something you see nowadays. You still see just people just streaming ridiculous amounts of time. They do nothing with their content. They're some of the most funniest people out there that stream and everything. And I was actually just saying this with the podcast I did with Flamey just a couple of days ago. You know, there's a lot of people that don't understand what leaving a legacy means. And a lot of people think that it's dumb and, oh, we're just gaming. Oh, we're just having a hobby or whatever. But you chose to start that stream. You chose to build with other people and connect. And most people's goal is to be able to do it as a full-time career and just make people happy. And people get caught up in whatever's going on. And instead of leaving a legacy or whatever, they're just, oh, I'm just streaming right now, so it just helps me get through the day. And tomorrow's a new day and we'll see what happens. And that's obviously such a wrong mindset to have because, you know, what I was telling Flamey is that, you know, if you have somebody that only streams and that's it, you don't do nothing else and you barely support people or whatever, the only thing, those people that really, you know, mess with you and really vibe with you in your community, the only thing that they know is you'll be back tomorrow. And people that really care about you, like to me, this is just my personal opinion. This isn't to like trigger nobody or anything, but I would feel offended if I wasn't giving them updates. If I had somebody that's dedicating their time, they had a hard day at work, an argument, financial troubles, you know, child issues, whatever you got going on, and you're dedicating that small bit of your time because it makes you happy coming to see me, and all I give you in return is we'll be back tomorrow. And I don't give you no content to watch. I don't give you any type of schedule. I don't pop in Discord and say, hey guys, we're just feeling a little bit under the weather. We'll be back tomorrow. There's people out there that don't even have jobs or anything else going on. All they can do is just connect with other people. And it's, it's a little bit offensive because they rely on you because you provide them happiness. And as a creator and as a streamer, that's our utmost thing that we love being able to do is to bring joy to other people and just make them forget about what they've got going on. So that's just a big thing for me. Everybody is different, and I'm not trying to get like too personal in it. But at the end of the day, no. It just hurts, because there's a lot of people that talk about being the change and shedding light, and it's those same people that's not giving that 50-50 in return.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, especially with the part about feeling what was the word you used? Selfish.
Yeah.
About not giving them updates.
Mm-hmm.
That was another reason why I didn't stop streaming earlier, is because I kind of felt bad because I knew there were people in my community that really enjoyed when I streamed, and obviously some people are there just to hang out, but there was some people like their lives aren't the greatest at home and they really look forward to the streams, and I felt selfish stopping streaming, taking that away from them, so to speak, just so I could get closer to where I want to be, which is doing this full time. And yeah, that was something I really struggled with coming to terms with when I decided to stop streaming.
Yeah. So in your experience with what you do now, because like I said, we kind of established that you're a little bit flip-flopped of what you used to be, what advice would you give people that know that what they're doing is not the right route that they need to take, but they're like if they want to pursue content or get more into short form content and stuff, and they're worried that if they stream less, they're not going to appeal to all the people that stop in their 12-hour streams. What advice would you kind of give them to help make that transition?
I think you really just need to think about where you want to be and then actually lay out the plan of how you're going to get there. Because for me, like I already said, my goal was to do this full time, and it's still my goal to do this full time. But if I wanted to get there, I needed to build a gallery of content that's really good and people can really enjoy and sit down and not want to click off. And I what was the question again? I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. Just giving advice to them on how they can switch up their content, not stream so much and get into content creation, but they're worried about losing the people they've gained.
Well, if you really think about it, if you're doing what's best for you and those people leave, then that's not on you, that's on them. And if you not streaming causes people to leave, then they might not be as dedicated as you think they are, which sounds kind of harsh, but you need to think about what's best for you. And I've had some conversations with other creators, which one with Mitch actually, which is really pivotal for me in doing what I'm doing right now, is he kind of had a heart-to-heart with me one time before I joined NorCal, and he was like, we talked about like what else I might need to do in order to prove that I am a good enough creator and have the potential enough to be a NorCal member. And this is back when I was in Rising, and I was in Rising for about 2 years before I joined. So he told me this. Forgive me, Mitch, if I'm not supposed to say this. It's not really that big of a deal. But he said, a year ago, are you where you are today, where you wanted to be? And I really thought about it, and I was like, I really haven't grown that much since last year, a year ago today, or even 2 years ago today. So that kind of kicked me into gear of really going for what I want and kind of figuring out how I'm actually going to get there. And that was just content. And because I feel like that's my strong suit. That might not necessarily be what you or anybody watching this should do, but I know my strong suit is editing and storytelling are things I'm really passionate about, and I actually enjoy Valorant. I'm not just forcing myself to make content on it because it's a popular game. So just combining those things because they're my strong suits and really going all in on that rather than trying to spread myself too thin by doing the content and streaming and anything else that might just take away my attention from what's most important.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I understand for sure. And I mean, it's obviously, I mean, it's good advice to give to understand and kind of set, you know, and a lot of people kind of use the New Year's resolution for that. And I mean, everybody interprets it in different ways. You know, a lot of people that I see, especially in my friend group and stuff, they'll set numbers. Like, I want to be at this many subs, this many views and stuff. And like, that's not a bad thing. But I think, especially if you're starting out content, you know, it's where you want to be in a year, I think is a lot more understandable if you can set out a schedule and you're like, by the end of the year, I want to know that I've uploaded, I don't know, 100 YouTube videos, 100 long form content, and just like setting things like that. Because I think so many people get caught up in the algorithms and the views and the hashtags and all that. And there's not a lot of people that focus on the consistency, because a lot of people that are creating content are just doing it to get on that For You page one time and hope that it blows up. And then when it blows up, they'll start being consistent. And like a lot of people do it backwards. And I think for me, that would be the bigger thing, is like, you know, setting a number of views and subs and stuff. That's not a bad thing. Everybody can do it how they interpret it. But I think the more important thing is if you start that year out saying you want to start content, and all of last year you've produced a total of 5 videos, if you end off the next year at 100 videos, you are way farther ahead than you ever was, you know. And I think that's a more better way to anticipate it, which again, like I said, other people interpret it in different ways, which is fine. But it's just all, you know, just like you said too, you have to make content on something that you love. And like, yeah, like now, especially this generation, we look at little things like that, like cringy and corny or whatever, but it's true. I mean, why would you create content on a game you're not having fun on? It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so many games that you can make a career off of. And a lot of people think it's got to be one of these A-list games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Valorant. Like, it's got to be one of these huge games. Like, I've seen all corners of YouTube gaming pretty much. Like, I mentioned Wizard 101 earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There are people making full-time careers playing Wizard 101 right now. And I
probably hate them.
I even debated doing it myself. I literally made a channel and I recorded a video and I edited probably like the first 2-3 minutes of that video. And then I was reading something or watching something, and it said something about spreading yourself too thin. So that's why I decided not to go through with it. But it's very doable. Like, if you really love Splatoon 2, there's probably a way to make a career off of that. You know,
there definitely is. And I think, I don't know, have you ever played the game Rust?
I haven't played it, but I definitely know it. Yeah.
I definitely, if you ever have the time to tap into it, I've got about 2,000 hours on that game. I love that game to death. And that game, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you said that you love being able to storytell and stuff. If you ever have free time, I would search up Stevius on YouTube. He's a Rust creator, and that's all he does. He start outs with a mission. This is what he's going to do. This is what he does, and he just has a storytelling series to getting to from being a naked with a rock to having, you know, full gear on and a rocket launcher and stuff, and, you know, making enemies along the way. There's a lot of avenues of content you can get into Rust. It's not a game for everybody, but you just said that you love storytelling, and Rust is definitely a game that you can make tons of storytelling on, and that wipes every single week, so everybody starts over every week and stuff. So it's a really good game to get into. So before we kind of start talking a little bit more on this topic that we're on, one of the last questions I always do ask before we get into speeding it back up is, I want to know where Brinx came from. So tell me how BrinxHQ came to be. Where did that name come from, and how is it who you are today?
Well, it's a very simple story. I used to be called Blizzard, because that was my username for my Wizard 101 account. So I went by Blizzard, and I don't know why I decided to switch it up. Maybe I thought that was too broad and it'd be hard to search on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I decided there was this game at the time called Brink, and I didn't really get too creative after that. But it's a very small game. Not many people that I know even know about the game, but game called Brink. I loved it. So I thought it'd be cool to have an X, Y, or Z in it, and I thought the X sounded the coolest, so I went with Brinx. That's really the whole story, honestly.
Yeah. So where'd the HQ come from?
Oh, the HQ. I couldn't get Brinx on a lot of socials,
Yeah.
and I don't want to put like FPS or something like that in my name that a lot of people use. I don't want to put like HD. And I have a friend who I actually haven't talked in a long time, but his name was Xanaphis HQ. That was his YouTube handle. So I really like the HQ, and that was really unique. I've never seen anybody else do that. So kind of borrowed that from him.
No, I mean that's cool. And I was just telling you this a little bit before we started. Mine and yours names is like very similar. Like we have the same letters and the same endings, just like in different ways. And you're Brinx HQ and I'm Feeds XD. And that was the same thing for me, And I won't go into my whole spill. I've said it a bunch of times, but just like super fast for my name. I was playing COD Ghost at the time, and I ran into a random dude. Don't remember what his name was, but it was for XGN. It was Exiled Gaming Network. It was a weird community clan around the time. Really dumb. It really didn't do anything for me. But I went around. I was a sniper, of course. My first ever gamer tag, my only ever gamer tag, was Random Gamer with 4 sevens because I didn't know what to name it. So I just decided, because I like the number 7 and I couldn't think of a name. And so they had just randomly invited me to a private match, and they said, hey, this is our team. This is what we do. I'm going to put you in a 1v1 with our best member. If you beat him, we'll pay you a name change. I was like, sure. Because I was a cocky sniper back then. I was like, sure, whatever, like put me in. And I ended up, winning and beating him. And they was like, so it has to have XGN in your name and you can't be Random Gamer. And I was like, I don't know what to pick. And so I started thinking about sniping, and, kill feed was where like my mind was at. And I was like, kill feed sounds really dumb. No offense to anybody named kill feed, because I know a few, but it sounds really dumb in my opinion. And so I was like, what should I name it? And I was like, feeds. Like, I love sniping. I love seeing my name in the kill feed. Like, let's go with feeds. And XGN feeds was my first ever like gaming, content name, whatever. And then obviously the XD, I just couldn't find. Feeds is taken fucking everywhere. So everywhere as I go, everybody's got feeds, so I can't win. Except for on Kick, somehow I grabbed it.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's where mine came from. But that's something I always ask everybody. I like hearing the backgrounds of your names, and I say this all the time. It really doesn't matter if you don't have a background in your name. It's just like me personally, I love if anybody has even the smallest background of your name, because when you get to wherever you want to be, your name it means a lot more to you. It just adds that, extra piece of sentimental value, to your mind and stuff, and to your story, really. So yeah. So we've talked about your gaming and your streaming and where you got your name from and stuff. We've talked about a lot of things, and we've kind of touched base on some of these topics that I usually bring up at the end. But one that I wanted to bring up specifically, 1 or 2 questions before what you wanted to bring up a little bit, I guess, more elaborated, for the networking aspect. And I said this at the very beginning of this video. I say it every single time. A lot of people have issues playing with other people, connecting. Hey, do you think this video sounds good? Hey, do you want to run some lobbies? Hey, I seen your video. Maybe you can improve on this. Or a lot of people are, very socially awkward, which is not a big deal. It's not like pushing them or whatever, but a lot of people struggle with gaining a friend or being helpful or asking for help and stuff. So being able to network obviously is perceived in many different ways. But in your opinion, what would you say networking is, and what advice would you give to other creators that are trying to expand themselves and get out there?
Well, networking is extremely important in this space. That's how you meet people. That's how you make connections. And so that reminds me of something, actually. A podcast Mr. Beast was on, he mentioned when he was a very small YouTuber, he had a group of like 4 or 5 other people, and they were a tight-knit group. And this will make sense in a second, but they all made YouTube videos. They would all learn things, and they would teach that to the rest of the group. So if you can network and find your own little group, you can learn something, and you can tell them so they don't make that mistake, and they can do the exact same thing for you. So instead of you having to make 10 mistakes yourself, you can make one of them, they can make the 9 others and teach
Yeah.
you so you don't make those mistakes as well. And it just helps everybody improve exponentially. That reminded me, I didn't even think about it. I'm in a group right now that I meet with every week and we'll review our content. And
Just
I guess
forgot
I kind
about
of
your
got that
team
idea.
meetings.
Yeah, guess I kind of stole that. It's actually not NorCal meetings, but
Yeah.
it's just some other YouTubers. They don't even make Valorant content. They make completely different type of content. One guy's a VTuber. One guy is about to make League content. Another guy makes content on World of Tanks. But we all learn things
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
teach them to each other. So
Yeah, that's a very
that's
unique way for sure.
that's one very important thing of networking, and also, um, wait, I don't know what I was gonna say, but yeah,
No, you're good.
networking.
So
Please do
what
it.
advice would you give like what tips would you give for to help them,
Hmm.
get out of that zone?
Well, if who's watching this is anybody like me, I'm more introverted than extroverted, so I understand it can be a little difficult at times. Like I'm much better at talking to somebody over Twitter than getting in a call like this, like or jumping in a lobby with them and playing a game with them. Um, so it's one of those things, and obviously I've gotten better over time.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of have to rip the band-aid off, and as soon as you start talking to them or start playing a game with them, like you realize it's not that bad. Like they're just people too, and they might have the same feelings as you, but it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world, and it's important to meet others that have similar interests as you.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. So another thing that I always like to bring up, not directly on mental health, but something I always like bringing up is people that burn out, or just like we said before, they're making content on a game that they don't enjoy, and they don't tell nobody, or they don't talk about it, or they just kind of ignore that it'll get figured out when it won't. So I label it as mental health because it is something that affects everybody. It's something that a lot of people don't talk about when they're going through content issues or family issues or something. A lot of people, they get burnt out, but they're like, oh, if I don't stream Call of Duty tomorrow, everybody's going to stop watching me. Or, oh, if I don't stop making videos, I'm just going to fall off and restart over. So people that, struggle with burnouts and have those battles inside their head of, what should I do? Should I take a break? Should I switch up my content? What advice would you give them to try to help give them some tips?
Well, it varies for everybody, but you just need to be self-aware and look at where you are now and where you want to be. And if, for example, you're making Call of Duty content and you're bored of the game, because I heard you and Flamey talk about that Call of Duty can get a little stale
Mm-hmm.
over some time until the next one comes out. And if you aren't enjoying Call of Duty anymore, if there's a game that you've been really interested in or you have been playing on the side that you really love and there's a space for it, there's a niche for it and on YouTube, then I wouldn't suggest to immediately jump into it. Definitely give it some more thought first. Maybe figure out why you might be burned out. Like maybe it's not Call of Duty itself. Maybe it's just the kind of content you're making on Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
Because on every single game, there's 1,000 different ways you can go about making content. Like I make content on Valorant. There's people that make tutorials on Valorant. There's people that do speedruns and a lot of other things. I don't do any of that. I do
Mm-hmm.
kind of my own, I guess, sounds weird to call it storytelling niche, but that's what I do a lot in
Yeah.
my videos. And you just need to figure out what you actually enjoy. And don't worry about, you mentioned something about like, if I don't stream the next day,
Mm-hmm.
viewers are going to leave. Like in my case, not trying to flex or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but just giving raw analytics. I was also having those same thoughts about streaming and feeling like I would lose a lot of those viewers and they wouldn't watch my videos. But when I streamed, I'd say on average I'd have like 5 to maybe 15 viewers on a good day. And my last video that I uploaded got 60,000 views. So you can find that audience. Like
Yeah.
don't worry if you're going to lose 5 people, 10 people. Like it sounds like a lot because 5 to 10 viewers is pretty good when you're a small streamer, but it's not the end of the world, and there's literally 8 billion people left on this earth that could enjoy your content. So don't stress it too much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I hope that they provides them some insight. And that's, that's a really good thing too, a really good spill to get into about the different avenues of content you can get into, because especially as a COD creator, like it's a little bit difficult because on a certain game that you play, there obviously may not be as many different areas you can step into. But speaking of COD, and just like being with Flamey, like with Fortnite, there's many different ways you can go into. And, something that us creators get into is, oh, I don't want to do that because that's not what I enjoy. And something that is very self-disciplined, even for myself, I'm like, oh, I haven't really done any of my podcast episodes. That probably won't be that fun. And I'm like, well, I talk to myself and I'm like, well, have you reached out? No, I don't think nobody will enjoy it. It's like, well, have you reached out to other creators, see how they'd see? No, I just think that they're going to be a little upset or whatever. And same thing with gaming. Have you tried, build wars? Have you tried no builds? No, I've not really tried it at all. Have you tried this or that? Whatever, just being able to self-discipline yourself and kind of make yourself feel bad for not discovering different avenues of content that is there. Having that self-discipline could make or break the career that you're trying to get into. And I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. Would you kind of agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You just got to find ways to get inspiration as well, because like you said, Call of Duty can get stale. Valorant, a lot of people actually have stopped making Valorant content recently, a lot of the big guys, because there's nothing like creative mode or anything like that where they can bend the rules of the game and create new and exciting ways to make content. But one thing that's kept me on Valorant is, even though it's not the most flexible game for content, like entertainment content, I just get inspiration from other games. Like, I've actually looked at Rust channels before, and obviously that game is very different, but there's some ideas on some Rust channels that I could twist a little bit and make a completely unique Valorant video that hasn't been done before, or at least a twist on something that has. You just gotta look for that inspiration, and it doesn't need to come from the same niche that you're trying to make content in.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings me to, the last question that I'll ask here in a second. I always do kind of, which we have touched on a little bit of, we've touched on a lot of content stuff. But I always do kind of ask before we sit down and actually record this, if there's things that you want to talk about, and you kind of wanted to bring up a little bit on the content side, because of course the normalized thing in this environment and in this space is streaming. It's not really normalized for a lot of content creators. Usually, when a lot of creators, even myself, only here recently, I've done my podcast and I've done my beatbox reactions that I do, and I leave my Call of Duty stuff completely separate. I keep that on my Twitter timeline. I know you see it all the time because you like it. So I keep that on my timeline and on my streams, but my Call of Duty doesn't really touch YouTube at all, because I don't like that being, because I see it as just a lot of competition and stuff, which that's technically anything, but I just don't like it that way. And so I kind of use my beatbox reactions and my podcast to fill that gap, because I know that I still want to make YouTube content, but not for Call of Duty. It's like a really weird battle that you have in your head, because it's like, it sounds dumb because COD's what I stream, so why is not COD what I upload? It's different. No, it's something that's hard to explain.
No, it doesn't sound dumb at all. I think that's a very smart thing to do, actually, is not crossbreeding them on the same channel, especially because you're going to have two completely different audiences, and that's just going to sabotage any content you post on that channel if you have two completely separate audiences on that channel.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's why I wanted to bring up and just kind of ask you, for your side, because like I was saying, it's, when creators, before I got into YouTube, if you would have talked to me when I was in my streaming era, if you would have been like, hey Feeds, when's the next YouTube video coming out, or when's the next TikTok, I'd like roll my eyes. I'd be like, like editing, stupid, like. So in your advice, you wanted to kind of give a little bit of advice and tips to creators that maybe want to travel into more content and maybe do away from streaming, kind of like you did. So what kind of advice would you have for them?
Well, it depends if you want your main thing to be your streaming, because there are people that are just like naturally very entertaining personalities, and they would benefit more from I guess, focusing more on the streaming. So for those people, I would recommend obviously streaming a lot, and on your off time making content of your streams, but don't have it just be like random clips. Like even if you say the niche or the unique part of your content is you, it still kind of needs to be relatively similar. Like you can't post Fortnite clips from your stream, and if you're a variety streamer, you probably shouldn't also post Call of Duty clips on that same TikTok or YouTube account, because as I said before, with the sabotaging your own content, basically how YouTube works is whenever you post something, it gets served to your audience, and then depending on how well they respond to it, it might then push it on to more people. And if you garner an audience of Fortnite players and or Fortnite viewers and Call of Duty viewers, some of them might overlap, but I would assume you don't watch any Fortnite content in your free time, right? Do you watch Call of Duty content in your free time?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So like you, for example, if you were following me and I was doing Call of Duty Fortnite content, like if you saw a Fortnite thing and you weren't necessarily connected to me, you might just swipe away.
Yeah.
And that's going to completely ruin that TikTok or that short. So keep things separate and really think about like, what is your niche? Like maybe it could just be content on different games, but it's just hilarious moments from your streams. And that's how you get people into your streams, from those shorts. But if you're a streamer and you're primarily a streamer, you still have to make content. You just got to figure out how you're going to get people in the door, because that's the most important thing. And then learning streamer etiquette and figuring out how to get new people talking and get new people acquainted and building a welcoming community is how you're going to keep growing your audience too from there.
Yeah.
But if you want to go down like the content route, like me, maybe, then I'd recommend, if you really enjoy streaming, then you can still stream. But if say you plan to do a 2-hour stream one day and you're 30 minutes in and it's not going well, maybe nobody showed up, or you're not playing well too, you can end the stream early. You don't need to spend the rest of that time. You just really need to use your time wisely, because like I'm going to go full time. So the thing that's going to get me there is the videos. Like I said, that's my strong suit.
Right.
So, and that's what's going to pull in the money that's going to support me doing it full time. So that's why that's my full focus. And also finding your niche, because that's a difficult thing as well. Finding your niche with an audience that's actually there. And the important thing is to know who your target audience is, because if I was making cooking content and I was a 40 some odd year old man making cooking content, 40 some odd year old dad making cooking content, if I edited it like a Mr. Beast video from a year or 2 years ago, it's not going to do well, even if it's a very well edited video, because my target audience is not 15-year-olds. It's going to be people around my age. So the editing should probably be slower and not as intense sound effects or music. So yeah.
Do you have tips for people that want to like watch like maybe like some tutorials or like good places that they can understand like how to appeal to certain people? Do you have like, where should they check into?
I think there's a few channels on YouTube that give a lot of amazing advice where I learned a lot of stuff from. And there's one guy called Finzar, Finzar. He does primarily gaming editing tutorials, and his entire channel is a gold mine for any advice, editing advice. There's another channel called Film Booth, which is another gold mine for like analytics and learning how to read analytics and learning how to just edit your videos in a way that's still entertaining and not sacrificing the content for the sake of the algorithm, but just learning how to make it better.
Yeah.
And there's another channel called Grow Your Gaming Channel, which is very straight to the point. It's got a lot of good videos. And then this one guy named Hayden Hillier Smith, you can look up Logan Paul's editor and it'll come up. But he doesn't edit for him anymore, but he was his editor for probably like 6 years or so. And he's like the YouTube editor guy. So his videos, if you want to get more in depth with editing and storytelling and learning how to edit with the right emotions, then that's where you probably want to look.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Those are four Infinity Stone channels that you should go check out.
Yeah, well, I hope that somebody's watching. I hope that appeals to them and maybe gives them a little bit motivation to kind of tap into it and understand. So before we end off here and I ask my final question, I usually ask everybody, is there anything you want to say to anybody else that's watching before we end off here? Any last words or any advice that you want to give to everybody that's tapping into BrinxHQ?
Well, if you want to tap into BrinxHQ, you can look up BrinxHQ on all socials, except for Kick. Kick is actually, you said you got feeds on Kick. I got Brinx. You got Brinx.
Let's go. Kick squad.
That's where you can find me if you like Valorant content or you just want to look at some, what I like to think is pretty well edited content. Head over there. I also have Twitter where y'all can feel free to reach out to me because I always, like I said, I like helping people with their content. So if you got a question and I can answer it, I'm there for you.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Yeah, and same thing, just like I said on every video, our little Twitter tags are right below us, and then his links will be in the description down below. Lastly, before we end off here, is there anything that you have upcoming, any like coming up videos or anything you want to share that you're excited about? Any plans that you got going on?
Sure. Yeah. I have this one video I've been working on for a while, and I'm really excited about it because I've shared it with people, or I've shared the idea of it with people that don't even play Valorant, and they've said that they would click on that video if they saw it on YouTube.
That's
so
cool.
I'm really excited about that. I'm actually probably going to finish the edit right after this, and I'm going to schedule it to go up next Monday.
Nice.
But it's called I Made Fiverr Valorant Coaches 1v1 each other.
Oh, wow.
So I got 8 Fiverr Valorant coaches and made them compete in a tournament, basically. So
that's sick.
It's really fun video.
Yeah, awesome.
And it's also my longest video. Sorry.
Really? No, you're good. You're good. No, you're fine.
It's gonna be like 34 minutes. So I've never uploaded a video that long before, but a lot of effort went into it. So I'm excited.
Hey, I mean that's another thing. I mean, this whole conversation has been about different avenues and different ways that you can outlook yourself, and you're kind of doing the same thing. You're posting a video that you're not comfortable with because it's something you've never done before, but you're also hoping that it hits best, and who knows, maybe it will. Maybe long form content, just like I was telling you before we end off here, where I told you to check out Stevius for Rust if you ever have any free time. His videos are like well over an hour, if not more long, and that's his appeal audience. And I have been a part of that audience. Stevius, Blueprint, Willjum, all those creators. I'll sit there for an hour. I'll get food. I'll sit there and I'll watch the whole thing, and I'll just chill out. So it's a really good time. Well, yeah, Brinx, I really appreciate you being here, man. It's been a lot being able to hang out with you, especially just like I said before, we don't really know each other a lot, so I'm kind of glad to be able to know a lot more about you. I hope that anybody here is watching kind of took some bits and pieces and advice for you. If you ever need anything for Brinx, you can always DM him. He's always looking for new people to create with and hang out with. Same thing as me, but I definitely appreciate your time being here and doing this podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, of course. All right, guys. Well, that is it. Episode 33 of Feeds Mindset. That is it for you guys. My name is Feeds, and I'm out, guys. Peace.